In its latest financial disclosures, Oracle has revealed something that points to a fundamental business transformation. The company is in the middle of one of the most significant pivots we've seen in modern tech, and it's backed by numbers that frankly demand we reevaluate the entire AI infrastructure market. So in this analysis, we're going to break down the data, the strategy, and what it all means.
Let's start with the single most important number, $455.3 billion. This figure represents Oracle's remaining performance obligations, or RPO. It's the central fact that changes the entire story, a contract backlog of such staggering proportions that it completely redefines the company's path forward.
The sheer scale of this backlog is, to put it mildly, unprecedented. It really forces us to take a step back and reassess the competitive landscape. So, the central question we're going to tackle is, how did this happen, and what does it signal for the future of cloud computing?
Okay, so here's our roadmap. We're going to proceed through 5 sections. First, we'll dissect that backlog itself. Then, we'll look at the dual AI strategies that are driving it. Third, we'll get into the financial mechanics of this pivot. Fourth, its impact on the market. And finally, we'll take a balanced look at the very real risks involved.
So let's begin with the backlog. You have to understand this number is more than just a data point. It's a powerful leading indicator of a potential structural shift in market share within the entire cloud industry. Now, just to make sure we're all on the same page, it's absolutely crucial to understand what RPO is. It's the total value of signed contracts for future services. In this new AI era, which is incredibly capital intensive, securing long-term computing capacity is everything. That makes RPO probably the most critical metric for gauging future growth and competitive positioning. Okay, when you put the data side by side like this, 2 things just jump right off the page. First, Oracle's RPO in absolute terms has now surpassed its 3 main rivals. But second, and honestly, this is the far more significant point, is the year-over-year growth rate, 359%. That figure is an extreme outlier. It indicates a disruptive market event, not just some incremental gain. But this metric right here, looking at the backlog as a multiple of current revenue, this gives us the clearest insight into the scale of future growth that's been locked in. You see, competitors have backlogs that are roughly twice their annual cloud revenue. Oracle's is over 17 times its trailing 12-month revenue. This is what suggests the potential for a really dramatic capture of market share down the line. All right, so we've seen the what. Now let's turn to the how. How did they get these numbers? The data indicates this success is the direct result of a very deliberate 2-pronged strategy that targets the absolute core workloads of the AI revolution. To really understand this strategy, you have to differentiate between AI training and AI inference. Think of it like this. Training is the heavy-duty, computationally intensive process of building a foundational model. It's like educating a PhD. Inference, on the other hand, is the application of that model to specific data to get answers, like that PhD solving a real-world problem. Oracle has developed distinct, clear advantages in both of these critical areas. From AI training, it's all about performance and cost. Oracle's competitive edge really stems from its network architecture. They have this high-speed RDMA network that minimizes the biggest bottleneck, which is data latency between GPUs. When you combine that architecture with an early bet on cost-efficient AMD CPUs and just massive scale, you can see why they've attracted premier AI labs like OpenAI and xAI. And this quote from their CTO, Larry Ellison, just summarizes the value proposition perfectly. In a market where computing time is literally billed by the second, being faster translates directly into a compelling economic advantage for your customer. That, right there, is the core of their success in securing these massive training contracts. Now let's turn to inference, which many project will be the larger long-term market. Here, Oracle is leveraging its legacy strength, data security. Their strategy creates what you could call a data vault. The AI models are brought to the data, which is analyzed inside the secure database. The critical part is that the raw enterprise data never has to leave the client's control. So this kind of expansion requires an unprecedented level of investment. And that leads to a pretty significant countersignal in the financial statements: negative free cash flow. It's absolutely critical, though, that we analyze this figure within the context of the company's strategic spending. So here it is. The trailing 12-month free cash flow is negative $5.9 billion. On the surface, I know this looks like a significant red flag. But when you dig into the underlying drivers, a very different story emerges. You see, this cash outflow isn't because operations are deteriorating. It's a direct result of front-loading the capital expenditures, the CapEx, to build the data centers they need to service that $455 billion in secured contracts. In essence, every dollar of this CapEx is already tied to a pre-sold revenue stream. And this forecast data illustrates the planned trajectory pretty clearly. Fiscal 2026 is the peak investment phase. By 2027, as those data centers come online and revenue starts getting recognized, the company projects it will enter a transition phase where free cash flow turns positive. And that leads to a harvest phase in 2028 and beyond, where cash flow is expected to grow substantially as that CapEx starts to normalize. Now, what about the competitive landscape? Well, Oracle isn't trying to compete head-on with the incumbents across the board. Instead, it's employing what we'd call an asymmetric strategy, focusing on specific workloads where it has engineered very distinct advantages.
This table really gives a structured summary. You see, in AI training, Oracle's advantage is superior network performance and cost, and it's been validated by key customers. The disadvantage? It's smaller overall market share and a high dependency on NVIDIA. Then for AI inference, its core advantage is the security of its data vault and its immense existing database customer base, while its surrounding ecosystem of other services is less extensive than its rivals.
Of course, no analysis would be complete without a rigorous examination of the risks. A transformation this massive, even one backed by contracts, is not without some very significant challenges that need to be monitored closely. Our analysis points to 4 primary risks. First, and this is the most significant, is execution risk. The operational challenge of this global infrastructure build-out is just immense. Then you have financial pressure from all that sustained CapEx, a dependence on the NVIDIA supply chain, and of course, very high market expectations. All are key factors to watch. And that brings us to our final overarching question. Oracle has secured an unprecedented volume of future business, arguably de-risking its growth path to a degree you rarely see. The strategic questions seem to have been answered. So is it possible that for the first time in decades, the company's greatest challenge is no longer one of strategy or sales, but purely one of operational execution?